Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello, Stephanie. Hello, Ben.
Hi, Guy. Hi, Stephanie.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Stephanie, Chief Commercial Officer at SmartEase, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the first of our lunchtime webinar series for 2023. I'm working today from the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung and Bunurong people, and I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways as the traditional custodians of the lands. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who join us here today. The main event today is a fireside chat between Guy Olean from SmartEase and Ben Henderson from the Green Guys Group about how to expand your residential business by adding commercial sales. After the chat, there'll be a Q&A. Ben and Guy will be answering questions from you, and you don't have to wait until the end to submit a question. You could submit your questions via the Q&A button at any time during the webinar. We've got three $50 vouchers up for grabs for those who submit the best questions, so make sure you get them in. Following the Q&A, there'll be a quick poll so you can vote for the topic of our next webinar, and after that, we'll announce our voucher winners. For those who are new to SmartEase, we're payment plan providers, and we specialise in funding energy efficiency technologies like solar, EV chargers, batteries, boilers, energy efficiency, lighting and HVAC for businesses and organisations. We offer our channel partners the ability to provide finance to their commercial customers in a matter of minutes, on the spot via our digital portal at the point of sale. We're a one-stop shop for 1 to 10-year payment plans to rent or buy energy efficiency equipment or access a PPA. We offer competitive rates across all funding options and next-level service from our sales directors and customer support team. Guy, SmartEase's CEO and co-founder, is a renewable energy funding expert, as well as a non-executive director of Green Peak Energy and a board member of educational not-for-profit Cool Australia.
G'day.
Today, Guy will chat to Ben Henderson, the Managing Director of the Green Guys Group. Guy and SmartEase have been working with Ben and his business since 2015. The Green Guys Group started as a residential-focused energy efficiency equipment installer and is now an integrated solar and energy services provider with over 18,000 commercial customers. Ben is also the co-CEO and Executive Director of the Next Green Group and a board member of the Energy Savings Industry Association of Australia. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Guy and Ben.
Thank you, Steph. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this lunchtime endeavour. It's a new thing for us. We're trialling this sharing of content and of knowledge with our wonderful guests who are subject matter experts in their own right. Really about sharing experiences and sharing, the warts and all of this industry that we're all part of. Some of us have come on different journeys, and Ben, without me sort of spending too much time talking about our business, we have been working together since 2015. For a lot of people, they really haven't heard of the Green Guys or the Next Green Guys Group. So maybe tell everyone a little bit about your background and your journey and a little bit about the group that you're now running.
Yeah, thanks, Guy. I didn't realise it was the inaugural meeting, so a bit of pressure to make sure we provide some interesting content, hopefully, today. But yeah, the Green Guys, which we started 12 years ago, back in 2011, originally focused in the energy efficiency sector, with the main focus around commercial lighting LED solutions. And that was it still is a pretty core part of what we do. Over the years, we've branched out in different jurisdictions, and then we started engaging with you around some of the energy efficiency upgrades back in 2015. And then it wasn't really until 2017 that we got involved in the renewable space. And we've had a bit of involvement across a few areas, EPC, developing a PPA portfolio, We've got a sort of a side ancillary part of the business called Green Forms, and a couple of years ago we also developed microgrid power, which focuses around solar embedded network solutions. And then I guess one of those milestone changes for our group was back last year when we merged into the Next Green Group with Next Business Energy, which is a commercially focused business energy retailer. We've had a vision of being able to bring together sort of in front of the meter retail energy supply and couple that with behind the meter solutions so that we can create a range of customer solutions that are well suited for a modern day energy market.
Fantastic. And we're going to talk about this slide next, which is that as the business has evolved, you've now got sort of really 4 key pillars of your strategy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. When we formed the Next Green Group, we had to really think about what's important for us and where we're going to maintain our focus. Certainly through Next Business Energy, retail energy being a significant and important pillar, and then the other 3 being energy generation, energy efficiency, demand response, and I'll probably even put storage into that last pillar as well. And I guess also central to those 4 pillars is what we're really trying to achieve is being able to deliver cost-effective electricity for our customers, and also being able to lower their emissions and helping them on that pathway to sort of their net zero ambitions in a net zero world.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Ben. It has been quite a journey for you and the group, and surviving in this tumultuous industry basically shows that you've got a pretty good head on you. So congratulations on 12 years, and obviously congratulations on the recent transaction. So really the nature of this kind of presentation webinar, yes, it's our inaugural one, but it's really about sharing experiences, sharing lessons learned in particular, for hopefully the benefit of others. One of the big themes that we're seeing is lots of companies who kind of grew up in that residential space are now looking at commercial as one of the sort of faster growing parts of the market in terms of solution selling. So tell us a little bit about kind of some of the lessons you've learned and some of the key differences that you've observed in making that transition across from a residentially oriented organisation to a commercial one.
Yes, well, we've had a reasonable amount of experience in both the resi and the commercial. Residential, we've done some high volume rollouts, particularly around LED lighting, and even still today, currently with heat pumps in some of the states. But similarly, also we've also had quite a lot of experience in commercial, and certainly when it comes to renewables now, our focus is in that commercial space. And yeah, there's quite a few differences that we see and lessons that we've learned. Even in your sales approach, you can get quite quicker customer engagement and close deals in that residential sector. Quickly, you can get straight to the decision maker more easily. In comparison to commercial, we find that you need longer lead times. You need to nurture the consumer more. It's more difficult to get through to the decision makers and through that decision making process. And really, one key thing in terms of our sales strategy, I guess, is who we use and how we go about it. We've always found third-party sales channels can be quite successful in residential campaigns to sort of deliver quick sales, but they're not as effective when it comes to commercial sector where you really need to have that sales team that has the bandwidth and the time to be able to nurture those relationships, get your story across, and then work with a more substantial period of time until you can close that sale. So there's certainly, I think, different approaches in the teams that you need to build the sales teams to effectively deliver in commercial sector versus the residential. So what are some of the others? Certainly, I guess the products as well. Residential sector, you're often dealing with homeowners, and that's probably the core market, particularly in solar, but the same goes across a lot of the residential energy efficiency solutions. When it comes to the commercial customers, you've got to have a broader product range of solutions, because a lot of your commercial customers are just going to be tenants. And they've got complications that they need to deal with around, having to deal with a landlord for approval, around lease terms. And so I think you've got to have a bit of flexibility in how you offer that product. And for us, I guess in relation to PV solar, it's been about having a variety of options. And some flexible contracts as well. So, we're not necessarily just looking to sell a solar system. Having a PPA option can be good. Being able to have some flexible terms can be really important as well. And often linking some of those terms to their lease terms can help sort of alleviate some of the barriers that you can face with commercial customers.
Absolutely. One of the other big things, Ben, that we discussed is some of the, in particular, kind of workplace health and safety considerations, especially as you're kind of going up and dealing with some of those larger corporates. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Having not only work health safety formalized within your business certainly makes a very large difference when it comes to dealing with corporates and government. Like our journey across that, probably about 5 years ago, we decided to formalise some of our practices across work health safety, quality, and also environment by complying to ISO, those relevant ISO standards. It's a pretty difficult, costly, and challenging transition to make sure it's all in place. But once it's in place, it sort of it ticks away. You've got those processes that just ensure that you have the appropriate policies. Those policies are reviewed and adjusted. You've got the control measures that then stem from them, and then hopefully also the systems to support that whole infrastructure.
It's probably just a good segue now into something we're planning to talk about later, but I might just bring it forward now. But you're starting to talk about systems and processes, and you've mentioned that you're relatively speaking within the business and across the different divisions, you've been a really big fan of looking to take kind of off-the-shelf software and solutions, and then being able to integrate them via APIs to talk to other systems. Tell us a little bit about that and some of the other systems and processes that you guys have deployed to really successfully transition into commercial opportunities.
Yes, and I don't think this is specific to just dealing with commercial. I think it's just as important to have those systems and automatizations into resi as well. But we've in the residential sector, we've found some of the software platforms these days are very flexible in terms of their API integrations into other systems, and so we've been able to take a lot of off-the-shelf platforms and then create workflows through automation that enables us to everything from lead generation and lead nurturing through even to the sales process, and even automating some of those sales processes to the point where you just minimize wherever possible human interaction. When it comes, I guess, to the commercial sector versus residential, ensuring you've got those systems and platforms to support you, and that could be a range of different different softwares, from PV cell to, there's battery modeling software, and where possible or where we're needed, we've had to build out our own platforms, particularly across the microgrid division. But I think getting integration wherever possible and automation wherever possible, it can really help that workflow, and it can reduce your costs and improve your customer engagement. So it's an important part to try and get right.
Absolutely. And, being a software-driven funder, we've often spoken, you and I, about that journey and how much time and effort it takes to get it, but just the productivity benefits, the customer service benefits of these systems when you get it right is really significant. I wanted to just talk to you also about, you've been in this space for a relatively long time. Where do you think you're really seeing success in terms of the industries and segments that are succeeding in adopting decarbonisation solutions of one form or another?
Over the years, we've seen a much more greater emphasis by corporate Australia to set the internal mandates around their carbon emissions and net zero pathways, which is fantastic. Where in what particular sectors? Broadly, we see it across all, and I think there is opportunity in all sectors. So I think what's important is to really understand the sectors that you're going to target, to try and work closely with them, whether that be through their industry associations, by engaging with them, understanding the particular challenges that various industries face, and being able to present your solutions to ensure that you're aligning, overcoming the challenges that they face. And again, the two critical things that we're always focusing on there is ensuring that we're delivering lower cost energy, and helping them achieve those emissions reductions.
Absolutely. And, one of the big things that we spoke about in our sort of dialogue leading into this is how, classic customer understanding and really understanding requirements during that discovery phase of a potential opportunity, how important that is. And, you mentioned to us around understanding what's really the driver or the blocker for decision making. So, for example, things like tenancy duration, and being able to, I might ask you to just comment on that and really understanding how to finesse solutions around some of those constraints.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to think. We had a good example with one of our customers that we've been working with across some energy efficiency solutions. They were looking at they wanted to look at some renewable solutions. Energy efficiency is often a little easier because the return on investments are typically much quicker than solar. However, this particular customer had long-standing property leases, and they had multiple sites. However, the structure of those leases that they engage in were all on a 3+3+3 type basis, and so being able to purchase solar on the basis that the reality was that they never had more than 3 years secured at any particular site really made it prohibitive for them to make a decision. With this particular customer, we were able to work around a basket solution of taking a range of their properties, understanding the profile and the length of time that they had been in those properties, and the likelihood of them staying in those properties, and create a PPA solution that we were then comfortable with. It was de-risked, that we could present to them, and in fact they've gone ahead with that. So it's a good example of trying to understand your customer challenges and constraints, working with them on solutions that will then overcome them. And I think also I like the philosophy that one of our sales directors takes, particularly as you get a range of different solutions that potentially you can present to customer. And you know, as a salesperson, you know, there's often that want to try and explain every solution as quickly as you can. But as he points out, it's most important to actually listen to your customer, engage with them, and understand their concerns, and think about your range of solutions as a bag of tools. And once you got a grasp on what their challenges are, you pull out the right tool for them. So I think it's a good analogy of you know, how to approach those commercial customers.
Well, that's also a good sort of, you know, feed to the next conversation that I wanted to have, which is, you know, you speak about energy efficiency and a suite of solutions. There's a range of state-based schemes, particularly in that energy efficiency space, that, you know, the Next Green Guys group has been involved in for several years, particularly in New South Wales, Vic, and South Australia. I'm really interested, and hopefully others are as well, around what are some of the lessons from those state-based schemes. What have been some of the challenges that are really common across that, and how that translates not just to efficiency type measures like lighting and heat pumps, but also to renewables?
Yeah, the state-based energy schemes have largely been around now since around 2009 and 2010, and I think for companies that are involved in solar, it offers a really good complementary opportunity to add some more solutions to the mix. They've really matured over the years, and they've actually expanded in terms of the liability and the funding that's available. I think this year that the 3 or 4 main ones, being Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, and ACT's got somewhat of well, they do have an energy efficiency scheme as well. The total value of those incentives was about 800, or is around 800 million this year. By 2025, that's going to grow to over $1 billion. So it's a really good opportunity to bolt on some other initiatives that are complementary, perhaps, to what you're already doing with your residential or commercial customers. Yeah, for us, we're engaged in a couple of activities, as you mentioned. Lighting is still one that's transitioning as we focus more on some of the newer options, and heat pumps is a one that was residential's been in for a little while. Commercial's been added more recently to the schemes. And there's a whole suite of other activities around also space conditioning that have just come into the programs as well. But I think, and just to sort of touch on, there's a bit of relevance here. Like the state-based energy efficiency programs were introduced to try and overcome a couple of challenges in the industry, and or challenges in the market, but operating normally, and one being knowledge gaps. Like, people just don't necessarily understand what a good energy efficiency upgrade is, you know, understand the technology, understand the return on investment or the benefit that's going to flow from it. So that was one of the big challenges. And the secondary challenge is lack of access to capital. So people, even though it may make financial sense, they didn't have the capital available to be able to engage and push ahead with these upgrades. And so the schemes try to overcome those issues, and particularly the lack of capital. Obviously, the incentive that's provided by the upgrade helps to overcome that. But one of the other things that we've found can really sort of supercharge that, and where we first engaged with you back in 2015 is to add financing to that as an option. And we've found that by the combination of utilizing the scheme incentive to reduce the capital cost, by providing alternative solutions to then be able to finance the balance, really has helped drive the uptake in those solutions.
Absolutely, and that is absolutely how we met. So working together to do that, and I think what's really illuminating is that there is still, you know, everyone knows about solar and everyone knows about energy efficient lighting, but there is still, you know, unless you go actively out there, particularly to commercial clients, and offer it to them, it's generally an outbound type marketing activity as opposed to an inbound. And that's a lot to do with lack of knowledge, A, about the technology, B, who to work with and who to trust. So referrals are really important. And then that lack of capital is, we're seeing that increasing at the moment, obviously, due to, a bit of a shrinking capital market in terms of what's happening out there with interest rates, as well as what's happening out there in broader confidence. Ben, I guess one of the last things that I really wanted to talk about before we sort of open it up for some questions is, as a business owner that's been through the journey and as a business owner that's really moved quite significantly into that commercial space, what are some of the sort of key things that you would be sharing, or not necessarily, if there's 3 things that someone walks away and starts doing in their business, what are some of those things to think about in moving from residential into a more explicit focus on commercial?
Certainly, I think people, I'd say, is probably one of the most important elements of your business, building good teams. One thing for us that I think has certainly helped, particularly on the sales front, we touched on this earlier at the start, just about being able to build out a sales team that has the bandwidth to be able to nurture customers over a long period of time. We've had a great team develop over years. Many of them have stayed with us for a long time, and that's given us that opportunity to nurture those customers and to re-engage with them, over and over and over. I recall it wasn't that long ago that one of our sales team members finally closed a sale that they'd been working on for 5 years. Obviously, that's a bit of an outlier, but having that ability to be able to nurture for a long period of time, I think, is really important. But just building out a team of good people, is just critical to success, I think, in any business, really. The other thing, definitely understanding your customers, understanding their challenges, and then designing your solutions to ensure that you're helping them overcome them. I think that's a really important thing to stay focused on, because as businesses, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to overcome challenges for our customers and assist them in them achieving their goals. And I guess a final thing, and again, just thinking about our experience, I think trying to find niches is really important as well. Find that little wedge that you can have a point of difference, and that can be a real variety of reasons why that point of difference. But find something that differentiates you from your competitors. Offer a solution differently. Have different, better customer engagement, whatever it might be. But finding that niche that you and your team can really harness and understand, and use that to drive your business forward. I think that's worked quite well for us as well.
And would you say, for you guys, one of the big differentiators has been, having that kind of horizontally integrated business, the leveraging of those efficiency schemes and capital solutions has been a real element of your kind of differentiation and niche?
Absolutely. Because I think whether it's the energy efficiency schemes and the rebates, or the STCs, LGCs, combining that with finance solutions, it's all about removing those barriers, those capital cost barriers, and providing alternative ways. You don't want a good solution to not go ahead because they don't have the money, and without harnessing all those and value stacking them, by doing that, you bring down that barrier, and you give your business the best opportunity to get a sale.
Absolutely. Ben, final question before we kind of throw it open. I noticed that you are on the board of the ESIA, the Energy Efficiency Industry Association. Tell me just a little bit about that. And I know it's a real passion for you, and some kind of learnings and experiences from that.
Yes, been part of the ESIA pretty well since its inception, and it was a industry members who are focused in the various state-based energy efficiency schemes who originally got together to form the advocacy group that's formed into a formal association over the years. It's great to be part of, but I'm a really big advocate for getting involved in industry associations. They're a great form of staying on top of the latest news and information, and there's some really good ones relevant to our industry, whether it's CEC, Smart Energy, ESIA, A2EP. There's a stack of them, and so I'd suggest getting behind them, getting engaged with them, attending the webinars and the information briefings, because yeah, for our company anyway, we've got a lot of value out of it.
Awesome. Well, I might just thank you firstly, Ben. That's been awesome. I might just hand it over to Stephanie just to take us through some of the questions. It looks like there's been lots of questions that have been there. We've also got a poll that we want people to quickly answer. So we might just put the poll up and then jump into those questions. But yes, for the 3 best questions, we're going to hand out a $50 Shouter gift card. But Lauren, can we maybe just get the poll up in terms of the next sessions and get people's feedback on what other content they'd like to see? And then Steph, I'll let you read that out and we'll go on to the Q&A.
Sure.
New thing.
We like to hear from you, and we're really interested in the sorts of things that are on your mind. So what topic should our next webinar tackle? Do you want to know all about bundling and learn about how to increase an average transaction value by adding services? Or perhaps you want to hear from an industry expert on how to get a piece of the EV pie. The revolution, I think, is a great way to think about that. It's certainly been in the media for a few years, but has absolutely ramped up in the last 12 months. Or are you interested in hearing from another business owner about how they grew their business in another fireside chat between Guy and a guest speaker? We'd love to hear what you think. While you're doing that, I'm going to go over to our chat and our Q&A box and start going through the questions. Thank you very much for submitting your questions. Keep them coming and we'll get through as many as we can. Ben, we covered this in a little bit of detail, but Brett would like to know specific strategies in dealing with commercial tenants for PV who are getting pushback from landlords.
Yes, we've come across a significant amount of that as well, and it can be very frustrating. Now we come, so I guess you could probably break it down into a customer looking to either buy the system or a customer engaging it under a PPA. We think certainly having a range of all the really key reasons or good reasons why a landlord should do it. The obvious ones that, one, they're going to make their tenant happier, and I think that's just critical. You know, for a landlord, the key thing is being able to maintain a good tenant, paying a good rental, and keep the occupancy high. You know, by installing solar on the roof, I think they're certainly facilitating that. Again, also understanding what the landlord's concerns are. It's going back to understanding what the challenges are and what the concerns. So, you know, we've found that often landlords have originally just said no because they're worried about roof penetrations and leaking roofs, and we all know there's ways to address that and communicate the different ways and the non-penetrable sort of solutions. And so I think understanding what those pushbacks are from the landlord as well can also help you overcome it. Like in certain circumstances as well, particularly when we're deploying a PPA solution, there's always the fallback to providing some incentive to the landlord as well as part of that solution. So there may be a type of rooftop license or rental fee that gets a portion to the landlord. So there's a range of different tactics to try and see which one may assist in getting that landlord approval.
Yeah, and Steph, from our experience, there's generally a solution that's available to address those landlord-tenant challenges, so long as the intent by both parties is to find a way through it, we can get there.
Thanks both. The next question we've got comes from Dan. And Dan says, we meet a lot of commercial customers that have a very low buy price for electricity. How do you combat this when the majority of the bill is made up with network charges and demand charges? He says some buy rates are as low as 5 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yes, yeah, that certainly can be a challenge. The fortunate thing about that, in case no one's realised what's happened over the past 9 months, is that we've had a wholesale market that has significantly changed, starting probably about May, June last year, off the back of a range of things, including the war in Ukraine, gas and coal prices going to extraordinary levels, some outages locally here. Wholesale market prices have significantly increased. The government put a cap late last year on coal and gas to try and suppress the impact that it was going to have on wholesale energy rates, yet we're still seeing them significantly higher than what they were a couple of years ago, when those sort of off-peak and peak rates were being contracted at 5, 6, 7 cents. So the landscape's changing, which means there's a really great opportunity at the moment. Certainly what we've seen a lot of increased interest in our C&I customers when they go to reprice. We saw some very significantly increased from that 6 cents up closer to 40 cents for peak rates. They've come down now, but if you've got commercial C&I customers who are looking to reprice at the moment, their peak rates, depending which state they're in, are probably around 14 to 16 cents, with off-peak around 9. So really that does change the metrics, the financial metrics in that decision-making process. So we're seeing what those difficult ones that were sort of pushing out to a 6-year return on investment, all of a sudden coming right back into 3 years, 4 years. So it's a great time in relation to wholesale markets being high to re-engage. And obviously, with the small market customers, those rates have been increasing as well. AEMO just announced, I think it was last week, the new default market offer tariffs, which have increased, again, depending which state, by about 23, 24%. So even small market customers are having increased energy costs, which just improves that return on investment story for customers. So yes, acknowledge the frustration of when you're coming across those very, very low rates, but now's an excellent time to be re-engaging with those customers.
Yeah, the pressures just from a decarbonisation point of view in terms of stakeholder expectations, along with the business case being the best it's been in a relatively long time, are really compelling. And then when you add sort of capital solutions, so you can actually do it under a PPA or payment plan with nothing up front, it really starts to become very, very compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing. The PPA, when you're dealing with those historic 5, 6 cents for the retail component rates, getting a compelling PPA offering was more difficult. We're seeing that those current rates are getting a lot more interest from customers on the PPAs.
Fantastic.
Thanks for those. Next question is, it's about lead generation. So what are your key strategies for commercial solar lead generation? And DL asks, would you say that having 6 years of energy efficiency experience before you started in solar in 2017 gave you a real boost with your existing database?
Without a doubt, gave us a big boost on our database. So when we got going, we'd had thousands of commercial customers that we were able to re-engage. So absolutely, that was very useful, and also a sales team that had maintained those relationships. So being able to re-engage, we may have delivered lighting. Typically, may have been the first solution to re-engage them on renewables. When you've already got that relationship, is much easier. In terms of other lead generation, we got a variety of sort of go-to-market strategies. Everything from EDMs, electronic direct mail, with lead nurturing sort of capability built into the back of that, to provide a sort of a level of automation to keep that going up to a point where we need to get some human engagement. Social media, particularly for the residential activities, we find that an effective sort of strategy, lead generation strategy. But I think as a company with limited marketing budget, you've just got to try and work out what works best for you. Some people use third-party lead gen as well, and if you make that work, fantastic. So it's about tailoring it to your budget and tailoring to where you obviously find that success.
Thanks, Ben.
Absolutely. So go on, Steph.
Oh, I was going to go to the next question, Guy, unless you had something to add to that.
No, let's march on.
Kunal would be interested in your take on how the battery storage uptake has been for commercial.
Pretty slow. For us at the moment. We obviously see it as being a big part moving forward, and we've done quite a bit of work on it, particularly around our microgrid power business. And for us, we always see battery as a value stack of opportunities, and it's about being able to harness all those opportunities properly and fully, to be able to get the best commercial return, and that's a mixture of energy arbitrage, so excess solar being stored, or even if you've got a pool, if your customer and some of the sites we operate have a pool pass-through scenario, so charging when it's cheap. Also capturing the peak demand lopping opportunity, and then potentially even participating in additional revenue sources through FCAS and other opportunities that through wholesale demand and other opportunities that will develop hopefully over time. So we've got a couple of sites we're sort of just deployed and we're monitoring to see our real life experiences versus what's been modelled. But that coupled with the anticipated reduction in battery prices in future years, we certainly see it being an excellent opportunity over time.
And I'd echo that in our own business from a funding point of view. So most of the batteries that we're seeing being funded are sort of fringe of grid applications at the moment, where it's being used almost as a standby power source to, instead of a diesel generator, because it can cut in much quicker than a diesel generator. It requires some rewiring, of course, but really that energy arbitrage like solar and other energy efficiency in terms of true paybacks by being self-sufficient isn't quite there. And we think that we've been saying it's 2 to 3 years away for a long time, but it's still not quite there yet. And battery prices did have a relatively significant jump in prices in the last 12 months just because of supply chain. But per Ben's comment, we think that the prices are going to start tailing down and the economic argument for batteries is going to keep improving. But the reality is that given export limitations, particularly on solar, the need for batteries is only going to increase.
Thanks for that. For anybody whose questions I haven't gotten to today, I do apologise, but we will answer them. Final note. I'll just get a quick comment on a last question. So Prido says, we have more success with SmartEase financing models, but when it comes to PPAs, they often come back as less worthwhile. What do you recommend, Ben?
So say that again.
So it's about comparing Smarties financing models vis-a-vis what a PPA might come back for to offer a customer.
What a PPA might come back for? Like, is that in terms of pricing or?
I feel the question is about pricing when he talks about less worthwhile.
Yeah.
So
look,
when you're doing those
some
comparisons for a customer, how do you go about it?
Absolutely. Well, so we've got what I think is a process that we go about it in terms of understanding the customer's load profile, the obviously the utilization of the solar system that we're looking to install under the PPA arrangement, and then working with Smarties can come up with some rates that we can take back to customers, but. It might be referring to the pricing, and I think it was something you touched on earlier, that sometimes the pricing has not necessarily been overly competitive when you're comparing it to those 5, 6, 7 cents a kilowatt, and that's correct. Like, that has been a challenge over the years to try and find that sweet spot of what a customer's paying. But as we said, like, that landscape's changed over the last 9 months, and so I think we're finding a lot more opportunity to present those PPA rates to our customers that are much lower than what they're now paying with their retail contracts. So hopefully some of those challenges of the past we'll see dissipating into the future.
And from our perspective, Steph, it's really a bit of a horses for courses type analogy, in the sense that you find just different customers have different requirements. Back to what are they actually wanting? Some of them really want the full wrap that a PPA provides in terms of no headaches, no fuss. If it doesn't work, it's not my problem. And others want quicker, shorter terms, and let's get on with it. And others, of course, want to buy it outright. So it's really about understanding those customer requirements in more detail to then be able to provide the right solution from a funding perspective.
Thank you both for those. Now, before we wrap up, we're going to announce the results of our poll. Almost half of you, 44%, would like to hear from another business owner. So our next webinar will be another How I Grew My Business fireside chat between Guy and a knowledgeable guest speaker from our industry.
Ben, you nailed it.
And at this point, I'm going to announce 3 winners. Thank you all so much for submitting questions. As I said, anyone we didn't get to today, we will put some answers for you in our notes to follow up. Our winners for today are Dan Prideaux and David Anderson. Lauren will be in touch with you with your shouter vouchers. Look out in your inbox for our cheat sheet that will be coming at you in the next few days. If you haven't already, sign up to our Smart Hub at smartease.com.au/learn to register your interest in upcoming webinars and other resources. And I would like to thank Ben Henderson. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a great chat, and we've all gotten a lot out of it.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Guy. Been a pleasure.
Been our pleasure too, Ben. Thank you very much. And thank you, Stephanie and Lauren, for hosting.
Thanks all. We'll see you at the next webinar.
Bye, everybody.